On Monday, James and his class met their new teacher, Mr. Tizard. Mr. Tizard wore a brown jacket with patches on his elbows and had a neatly clipped short beard. He also wore purple framed glasses and carried a purple ruler in his breast pocket. James thought he seemed nice enough.
"Now, class," said Mr. Tizard, "I'm going to hand each of you a book. Please sit silently while I do this."
However, when it got to James, Mr. Tizard had run out, and there were still 5 children to go.
"Oh, bother,"
said Mr. Tizard. "I don't mind sharing," said James, looking at the child sat next to him. But then he looked back up at Mr. Tizard, and he noticed that the new teacher had 5 more books in his arms, one of which he placed in front of James. Later, outside, James's best friend was talking excitedly about Mr. Tizard. James's friends seemed to like him. When he asked James what he thought, James said, I'm not sure. Something's weird happening in there." "It's because he's a new teacher," said James's best friend. "You'll get used to him." On Tuesday, the class had basketball in the afternoon. James was playing defense, trying to stop the attacking team from scoring a basket. As the opposition players moved in, James stood his ground and held his hands wide to make it harder for the other team. This forced one of the players to stop and shoot over James's head. The ball curved through the air as James pivoted on the spot, hoping to catch a rebound. Instead, the ball wedged itself between the hoop and the backboard. It was stuck. James and his classmates tried to jump and knock the ball free, but they were all far too short.
"What seems to be the problem?"
said Mr. Tizard, approaching from the edge of the court. "The ball's stuck," everyone chorused, just as the ball mysteriously dropped and bounced across the floor.
"It seems just fine to me," said Mr. Tizard.
Later, when they were getting changed, one of James's team said, "That was funny, wasn't it? When the ball just came unstuck like that?" "I think Mr. Tizard did it," said James. "How? What? He didn't go anywhere near it." Maybe he's," started James, but wasn't sure how to explain it. "Maybe it was magic? I don't think he's a real teacher. I think he's a wizard." "Nah," said the teammate. "It just came unstuck. There's no such thing as wizards." On Wednesday, during lunch, Sophie Barker slipped while carrying her lunch tray. As she fell on her bottom, her tray, as well as her lunch, flew upwards, promising to make a tremendous mess all over the place. Except the mess never happened. Somehow, Mr. Tizard just got there in time, caught the tray, and somehow every single thing on it, not a drop or crumb, was spilt. A slightly dazed Sophie sat down next to James. "That was lucky," she said. "Lucky?" said James. "That wasn't lucky. That was impossible. I don't think he's a real teacher. I think Mr. Tizard is a wizard." Sophie screwed up her face. "Of course Mr. Tizard is a real teacher," she said, and bit into her lunch. On Thursday, James couldn't get into his locker. It would just not open. A lady from the school office came to help, but she couldn't get it to open either. "Whose class are you in?" she asked James. "Mr. Tizard, the new teacher," replied James. "Well, you'd better run along, otherwise you'll be late," she said. "We'll have to sort this out later."
"Is something the matter?" said a voice behind them.
"Well, I never," said the lady from the office. "We were just talking about you, Mr. Tizard. Young James here can't get into his locker."
"What a nuisance," said Mr. Tizard.
as he propped himself up with a leather elbow on the next locker down. And as he did, James's locker door popped open.
Oh, will you look at that? It seems to have sorted itself out. Hurry now, James. Come on, class has started.
And with that, Mr. Tizard was striding off down the hall. I'm sure he's not a real teacher, said James. I think he's a wizard. What, Mr. Tizard? Oh, I think he's lovely, said the lady from the office. On Friday, trolls attacked. A portal had appeared on the school field just beyond the running track. Everybody was completely taken by surprise, mostly because everyone thought trolls and portals, for that matter, only existed in stories. But not Mr. Tizard. While the entire school stared out of the windows at the approaching troll army, Mr. Tizard whipped out the purple ruler from his top pocket so it could grow into a long wizard staff.
I need a volunteer,
said Mr. Tizard. James seemed to be the only one who wasn't dumbstruck by what was happening. He put his hand up.
Excellent, James. Now, stand still a moment.
A beam of purple light shot out of Mr. Tizard's staff and struck James's chest, transforming into a solid suit of armor around him.
Come on, James. We've got trolls to send home.
As they ran out to the school field, Mr. Tizard shouted,
Just point your fists at them and say, Kabooly!
Kabooly! Bellowed James and fired a purple beam from his hand. It struck the nearest troll, who promptly shrank to the size of a hamster, screamed in surprise, and then tried to run away. Kabooly! 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 Shouted James as more and more trolls turned tiny. Meanwhile, Mr. Tizard was zapping plenty of his own, but his trolls were puffing up into giant balls and bouncing into one another like great big balloons. In no time at all, they had turned the advancing army around. They chased the last of the tiny and bouncing trolls back through the portal. And then Mr. Tizard spun his staff over his head as he cast a closing spell. With a noise that sounded like somebody sitting on a pot of yogurt, the portal blinked out of existence.
Fantastic work, James, said Mr. Tizard proudly. Now, come along, back to class.
Back in the classroom, James's classmates were sat back behind their desks in stunned silence. James took his seat to a chorus of whispering from his friends. James, you were right. Mr. Tizard is a wizard. He's not a real teacher. Actually, said James, I think he is a real teacher and a wizard. But best of all, he's our teacher. The end. So that you don't miss a single episode, just click that subscribe button.